With WWE and AEW contracts set to expire soon, this is Wrestling Hub. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report for May 19th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official, and also follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. Recalling her SmackDown Women's title match last week against Ronda Rousey, Raquel Rodriguez spoke on WWE's The Bump about this bout, calling it a mental battle. I rank it at the top, if not number 1, then number 2, because I've had some pretty intense matches. I've had brawls with Rhea Ripley, I've had high-flying, long, scary matches with Io Shirai that were just thrilling, and then I've had this against Ronda, which was just a mental battle the entire time. It was no longer about using things outside of the ring, it was just about me and where I was standing in that moment of time and where she was standing in that moment of time and just getting it done. So it's definitely one of the top. With a rumored match between Roman Reigns and The Rock possibly going down at WrestleMania 39, the special counsel to the tribal chief Paul Heyman had this to say about it to Sportskeeda. "We can speculate all we want about Dwayne The Rock Johnson stepping into the ring with Roman Reigns. It's masturbatory fantasies until there's a piece of paper in front of us with Dwayne Johnson's signature on. Then I know it's real, and until then, it's just fantasy. It's a fantasy of Dwayne Johnson's to come and get the rub from the tribal chief Roman Reigns. It's a fantasy of Dwayne Johnson to feel the energy of 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 people live, cheering on as the tribal chief smashes The Rock. It's a fantasy of Dwayne Johnson to step in the ring with the greatest of all time, Roman Reigns. Then, now, and forever. Not until he puts his name on a contract, it's just his fantasy." Speaking of possible matches for Roman Reigns, fans have been looking forward to a potential showdown between Reigns and Cody Rhodes, as Paul Heyman had this to say about it with Wrestling Inside the Ropes. Absolutely. Cody Rhodes is not only someone with an extensive legacy, my god, he's the son of the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, but he has carved out his own niche. He's achieved his own accomplishments. He went out on his own. He blazed his own trail. He helped create something that completely changed the complexion of the industry. And now he comes back to claim what he feels is his moment, and the only way he's going to be able to live that moment is to step into the ring with the tribal chief Roman Reigns. It's a story that writes itself, and Cody Rhodes is a magnificent talent, who whether he is or isn't the son of Dusty Rhodes, he's that talented. With WWE announcing their Clash at the Castle event in the UK, this apparently has the most expensive tickets in company history. With Dave Meltzer noting on Wrestling Observer Radio, it's the highest ever because they scaled it. So the all-time record for WWE, which I believe is the first time that they were in AT&T Stadium where they legitimately drew 80,000 people, that was a $17 million gate. This one was scaled at the current price for a $21 million gate with less seats available than were going to be available. So it would be much higher ticket prices than any WrestleMania because they counted on the idea that it's the first one and the demand was heavy, so they jacked up the prices real high. It's weird because people would go in there and they would try to get the cheapest ticket, and they were told it was £225, which is about $240 to $250, and then they would turn it down. But then later other people were getting as low as there are people who got in for £40 for upper deck seats, which is, $50 roughly, which isn't that insane, but most people couldn't even get those. Sometimes you'd go in and people would get seats, and then you would get seats in the same section that would be ridiculously different in prices because there were rapidly changing prices and everything. So the gist here is, because people are just complaining about the ticket prices, and they were, it's the most expensive ticket prices in the history of the company that they were charging for this event. The idea is that they figured the demand was so big that they would get them, and if it wasn't, you go in there and you reconstrue the prices, and then you get the people later for lower prices. So it was like the people who really wanted the tickets and really wanted the front row and the real avid fans, and many of them bought tickets at a really, really expensive price today. I don't know the number. Obviously, nowhere close to anything full or anything like that. It would also be reported that ticket sales have slowed down due to this pricing. I said there were 20,000 people in the queue for Forbidden Door. When they were done with tickets, there were still 20,000 people there. Of course, there were only 11,000 tickets you could get, so there were many people who got turned away. In this one Clash at the Castle, they went through lots and lots of people who were ready to buy tickets, saw the prices, and did not buy tickets. And by a couple of hours in, there were 0 people in the queue. I mean, there was like no wait at all. When I say 0, I mean 0. I think it was like 3 or 4 hours in, so they went through that 20,000 and did not sell 60,000 tickets or anything like that, which that number would have indicated a number in that range, 55 to 60,000 tickets, because the average person buys 2.9 tickets, 2.8, but they came nothing close to that. And all I heard was from people all afternoon and morning just about how I was there, I was ready to buy, and some people I bought, which is fine, and the other people were just like, I am not buying at these prices. And the idea was to get as much money as possible from this, and then you lower the prices everywhere and try to get people to buy at the lower price, which is what WWE has been doing for big shows of late. That's the new strategy that they have, which is taken from the fact that everyone has seen that the scalpers have been making a killing, and we've gone through that, not just with wrestling but for everything. The Super Bowl was $8,862 for an average ticket by the scalpers, which was a huge markup. Also on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer revealed that many AEW contracts are set to expire soon. We're right at the time where the people who were signed prior to the first show, because the first round of people were the people who were signed on the first week of the year, like January 1st essentially. The Young Bucks and Kenny Omega were like February actually, but like Jericho and Cody Rhodes and all that, so they were due at the top of the year. Danielson and Kazarian were early also, Scorpio Sky was early also, and Moxley would probably be one of those guys if he signed a 3-year deal. The 3 years would be up. I don't know, there's like I don't know the deals as far as like if he has an option or whatever like that, but all the people who've debuted at the first show in Vegas that signed 3-year deals, and JR would have been one of those people where he debuted on that show, their deals are coming up now. So that's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, Stu Grayson's deal just came up and they didn't re-sign him, which is the most publicized, but JR signed for 18 months, which is an interesting number. Following the reports of Sasha Banks and Naomi walking out of WWE during Monday Night Raw this week, many would show their support for the former women's tag team champions. One of those supporting the duo was AEW star Swerve Strickland, who posted fist emojis. This led to the K100 informer claiming that Swerve was making the issue about race, and insinuated Banks and Naomi wouldn't be fired since they're black. Strickland would reply, racist journalists like this shouldn't be accepted in the community or tolerated. WWE analyst for Fox Sports Ryan Satin would chime in writing about Swerve, this is the same guy that taunted my fiance, who doesn't even work in the wrestling industry, over the death of her father. Total scumbag, who shouldn't even be given a platform to spew his BS. Recalling the time that Ryan Satin wrote a piece about Sasha Banks and Bayley throwing a temper tantrum in the WWE hotel after WrestleMania 35, CM Punk replied, "You ain't got room to talk here." Staying on the topic of the walkout of Sasha Banks and Naomi from WWE, Dave Meltzer would reveal the plans for Banks and Naomi had they taken part in the main event on Raw. Naomi was going to win the 6-pack challenge match, and she was actually supposed to pin Sasha to win the match, so they were going to be the last two left. Then Sasha was going to Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's title at the pay-per-view, and Naomi was going to challenge for the Raw Women's title against Bianca Belair. They were not happy with this because they were going to lose the title matches. They wanted to see Vince. They walked out during the show and put their belts down. Naomi's motivation for walking out would also be called into question, with reports of those backstage in WWE feeling Banks manipulated her into doing this. There's certainly people who are trying to claim Naomi was manipulated, and other people have told me that's really not fair to say because Naomi's a person. She made the choice herself and everything like that. But you know, it's like being in a pay-per-view and challenging for the singles championship even though they're going to lose. I mean, you're losing to Ronda Rousey and Bianca Belair. It's not like being buried, you know what I mean? It's not like they were out there and it was a bad business thing. Finally, it would be noted that the WWE WWE contract of Naomi is coming up soon. Usually, I'm pretty sympathetic to talent. I've asked people in the company, several, yesterday, and nobody was defending them at all. Quite frankly, nobody can understand it either. I mean, it's like, tell me, there's got to be more than this, right? On Monday's show, I mentioned Trinity's contract. So the deal is, and this was brought up to me as well, her contract, I guess it's expiring soon, but she was in negotiations for a new deal. It's possible that they might go with the idea that she's not leaving no matter what. Her family's here. And so they don't feel the leverage they might have felt with like a Kevin Owens or Sami Zayn or someone where if we lowball them, it's like they're going to leave. So we have to give them a pretty big offer. In her case, maybe they wouldn't do it, but most people who are getting new deals are getting substantial raises. Major raises right now because there's a wrestling war going on. The salary structure of WWE talent has increased greatly because of this. This is a pretty good time for her to make likely more money, maybe even a lot more money, but certainly more money, and this probably won't help her cause in negotiation. Now, on the flip side, if her deal is almost up or whatever, not too far from now, that they're renegotiating, in theory, she could sit out, but then they could freeze. And it's the same thing with Sasha. Whenever her deal is up, it's like if you don't perform, whether you're injured or just whatever, you walk out for a while, that does freeze your contract. And if you don't come back, they can freeze it in theory forever. Of course, in reality, you can't freeze them forever because at some point, you're going to go to court and you're going to win because that won't hold up in court that they're freezing you forever. But then you've got to go to court and all that. That's another hassle. You've got to fight them in court. I guess we're going to see how this all plays out, but I don't know. It was also said the company won't fire the two over the fear of them joining AEW. If it was another time in another place, it's very possible that they would have been fired. But it's this time in this place. I remember when the Charlotte Flair thing happened with Becky Lynch. And I was talking to people there and it was kind of like, if it was another time in another place, yeah, they would have been fired. They would have fired Charlotte Flair for what she did on live TV, screwing up the angle on purpose. But it's like, do you want to send her to AEW? No. And essentially nothing happened, and they don't want to send either of them to AEW. Then you've got the whole Naomi married Jimmy Uso. It's just a waiting game to see what happens next. With him set to wrestle his final match on July 31st with FTR against the Rock and Roll Express and a mystery opponent, Ric Flair took to his podcast to explain his comeback. I just want to address a few things that I think people need to hear about. I would say it's 70% positive, but for the 30% of people that are worried about me getting in a ring and wrestling again, first of all, I assure you that I've been in the ring a lot more than I've shown on social media. I have to get quicker. I have to get faster. I'm in better shape now because I train with Rob, John Cena's personal trainer, than I've ever been in my life in terms of cardio. I've never been a cosmetic wonder boy, so I'm going to wear a shirt. But I can assure you that in 2.5 months, I will put on a clinic of what real wrestling should be about. I'm never going to be able to do a moonsault. God bless those that can. For the other people that don't follow social media to understand, you don't see how much money I make from Cameo. That alone I can live on for the rest of my life. I just made a commercial for CarShield. My life is good. I don't need the money, but baby, I do like the glory. I'm never going to walk away from it. If I have a chance to get myself over, I'm going to do it. That's what I've been doing my whole life. You don't understand. If I can crash in that airplane with a pilot killed and 2 guys are paralyzed and get back on another plane and fly 6 months later, you could do anything. So I almost died 4 years ago. I got a pacemaker. I almost died of a blood clot. I had 4 heart operations in 7 weeks. I'm good to go. I will decide on when I want to go. So this is not about the money. This is about me doing what I've done my whole life. I watch wrestling every day because I love it, and I respect the guys in it. Chief Brand Officer for WWE, Stephanie McMahon took to Twitter to reveal that she's taking a break from the company, writing, "As of tomorrow, I am taking a leave of absence from the majority of my responsibilities at WWE. WWE is a lifelong legacy for me, and I look forward to returning to the company that I love after taking this time to focus on my family." With it previously revealed that the planned 4th member for Edge's Judgment Day stable, Harland, was let go from the company, the group's leader has taken to Twitter to post a photo of Paige, who recently asked fans to think about a comeback for her. Edge has also teased adding Tommaso Ciampa, with Brad Shepard reporting that the plan is for Finn Balor to turn on AJ Styles and join Edge's group. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.